growth pains.
Hey everyone, welcome to this new episode of Growth Pains. I'm your host, Ignacio Gallegos, better known as Nacho. Today we'll be talking about finding time in the day to focus on hands-on work, focusing on individual contribution over admin, dealing with the energy drain that we all have, especially in these times, and achieving healthy growth for your business. My guest today is Sujan Patel. We met at a conference in Italy a few years back. He's the co-founder of Mailshake. He's basically the managing director of an agency called Web Profits, and he's also the director of a company called Ramp Ventures, which has about 8 companies under their umbrella by now. He has over 15 years of experience in starting, running, and acquiring SaaS businesses, so I'm really happy to have him here today. How are you doing, Sujan?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Very, very, very excited to talk to you about something that I normally don't talk about, the struggles, the pain. So yeah, let's do it.
Oh man, that's the biggest part of my life, right? So it's something I talk about all the time, and I think, yeah, as you say, it's not talked enough. Did I miss something in that bio, man? Because it seems like every year I don't talk to you, there's like 7 things to add to that bio. Did I miss anything important?
Yeah, I'd say the only thing you miss is that fact that I have 3 young children, three under 2.
Oh wow!
So that would add to my challenges.
You didn't see the pandemic coming, huh? The whole working with kids at home and so on.
Absolutely not. Yeah, that adds some character to my day.
Okay, man. So busy times. Let's kick it off right away, and let's go first with the true or false. This is usually a small section I do to basically make people a bit uncomfortable. So here we go with the first one. And the first one I think is going to be an interesting one. You are the smartest Patel in marketing. True or false?
False.
Which one is the smartest one? There's a few.
There's a few. I don't know. I'd say I don't know. I think Neil's definitely been doing it longer. I think his network's bigger, so exposure to smart people is probably greater.
Yeah.
Although I could say I could probably out execute him, but we could fight. Yeah. So
okay.
We'll see.
There you go. What about the next one? So a single person cannot effectively manage the day-to-day at multiple businesses. True or false?
False. I'm doing it.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Anything you want to add on why you think it's something that a lot of people can do, or you think something that a few can do? Is this something that, what's your take on it?
I think a few can do, and that's mainly because it's an acquired skill set. Mm-hmm. You have to have maybe some agency background. You have to be able to kind of maybe be able to disconnect or like switch gears often, and I think that's not something people can do well.
All right, man. The next one. It's harder to fix the marketing than to fix the product. True or false?
True.
It's interesting because one of the things that usually people think in companies is that marketing can move quicker. Have all that engineering behind it and, all that planning. People will say, hey, you can just change your messaging, right? Quicker. But in reality, to change the impact of marketing, it's actually much slower.
Absolutely. I think the other part of this is you said it's easier, not faster, right? So product is a bit more finite and tangible, right? It takes X time to build something. You could talk to customers to build whatever. You can find out the problem, or you can get a little bit more detail on the problem and then go to town fixing it. And it might be a month, a week, a day, a year, whatever, right? There's a timeline. There are timelines and steps you can take to fix it.
Yeah.
On the marketing front, there's a hole and you have to guess. And then you have to listen to the people who say what they want, and then you have to guess that they're right? And then fixing that, or like, let's just quick example is Mailshake has been moving up market slowly over the years, from individual folks to sales teams to larger sales teams and whatnot. That's taken years to shift over. I wish I could do it overnight. Money can't solve that problem either.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's why I say it's harder to fix the marketing.
And you can also fill in the top of the funnel with quick changes in marketing. But if the product doesn't add up to that experience, then you're just going to be hitting a dead wall at the end, right? So that's not that good.
Exactly.
And the last bit is when it comes to creating content, there is so much saturation that moving forward, more in-depth content less often would be more successful than content every day. True or false?
True. I want to add something to that though.
Yeah,
I
go for it.
think you have to add in the fact of more in-depth, unique content that has some sort of intent to it. So not just like think about how you can be different or more detailed, but like always think about the intent. You can create content. If you look at like HubSpot, they've got so much content on like all this like sales quotes. Like what the heck does that do for HubSpot sales
Yeah.
quotes? Like, so just to kind of add to the already difficult part of creating content.
All right, man. So let's get to the good stuff. I would like to hear one thing that you are really, really bad at that you can share with the audience.
I think I'm really bad at, I think focus, right? If you look at how many freaking companies I run, I think focus is a weakness. I also would say it's something that the lack of focus has allowed me to kind of just execute. But yeah, I think focus and part of it's because I do multiple things. Part of it's I've got 100 things coming at me that need my attention. And so yeah, I think that's probably the area that needs the most improvement.
It's interesting because that essentially encapsulates like a lot of the pains you shared with me before the podcast, right? Like if we look at the pains you have here, and we're going to kick it off with the first one, they all in general are encapsulated by focus, right? That's the main driver there. So the first one would be finding time in the day to focus, to do hands-on work. I mean, I guess the most meaningful work you can, right? Like spending time is a little bit like spending money, right? You feel okay about that Starbucks that you buy every morning until you do the math later on and you just realize you spent $300 in coffee last month, right? But while you're doing it, you don't really feel like you're wasting that money. And with time, it's a little bit like that. You're going to have a coffee here, a coffee there, a meeting there, right? And that's really hard to tell until you actually audit it. So have you done that exercise? Have you like looked at your calendar and be like, how many actual hours of like in-depth focus work do I put in on the regular week? Is this something you have audited or regularly audit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think since 2017, I've done this like twice a year, every 6 months or so. I do this purge.
Right.
Have you seen that movie, The Purge?
No, I haven't.
So it's a crazy movie. So The Purge is about the movie. So I'll explain that because it really ties into what I do to get my time back. Is this movie about once a day you could kill people. It's a crazy concept, right? Like, and it's legal, like whatever you want, no rules.
Oh man!
And that's a way for like people to have some sanity back. I don't know, crazy reason. So I do this purge. Instead of killing people, I killed tasks on my plate, what I'm working on, meetings, everything. And I do, the meeting stuff kind of more regularly, but it's like, I've got a blog, I've got a personal blog, I've got, 8 companies, and actually we pared down to 4 and we're selling one, so it'll be 3. So like every so often things get stacked up that you do that maybe someone else can do better, that doesn't need to be done, you need to drastically change what you're doing to get better results. And it's hard to see the forest in the trees. And so that's my way of kind of fixing this and changing course. So that problem with the focus this is my solution to it. Now, reality is I would love to wave a magic wand and say, I want to focus on one company. Well, I have 8 that I've started or acquired and I'm running. I have an obligation to my investors, to myself, to make a return on what I've spent, my time and money, and my business partners, and more importantly, my customers, right? So I would love to say I'm going to double, I've identified Mailshake out of all the companies we've run as the biggest potential for a life-changing event, money-wise and largest business, TAM-wise.
Right.
But doesn't change the fact I'm still doing the other 7 companies, right? So what do I do there? Do I just kill them? Do I just get rid of them? And so, yes,
And are
As
you
of
able to?
2020, I know.
Yeah, but are you able to like really enforce like this? Because one of the things that I found tricky is that, we once every quarter or whatever, we all play calendar Tetris, right? And we go like, hey, this thing, I'm gonna move it here, and it looks really pretty, and you can color it, and you can do all this cool shit around it, right? But at the end of the day, it's like you're saying, okay, this is my window to focus in X, Y, or Z, and then you get that message. You're like, oh, damn. I'm just gonna have to fix this. Like, are you good at actually sticking to those buckets? Like, because I find that makes the complete difference, right? Most people have a pretty calendar. Very few really stick to it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at the calendar and time. And again, like having now children kind of limit my ability to like just spend hours
Yeah.
long. Like I can't spend more time. I don't have any more time without taking away time from other than my family issues. So I've got an obligation before 8 o'clock, and I've got an obligation after 6 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
And I can't work any more hours, quote unquote. So I'm pretty good at that. But what I'm bad at is filling that new time that I've created for myself with new stuff. And so I usually don't see the same problems over and over again. I see new problems. And the hard part about new problem is that whatever you did to solve your old problems doesn't work always the same, right? So
Yep.
now 6 months from now, I'm like, well, crap, how do I solve this, right? Like, so here's an example. We just hired a VP of marketing at Mailshake.
Okay.
And now I don't do any of the data. Like, I am now pretty much the visionary of the company. We don't have a CEO title, but like that would be probably the closest to what I do. But now I've filled the void of time of doing the marketing, and I'm still involved in like a lot of the strategy. I'm just not leading it, right? I'm providing input and direction, some feedback. I'm working on the product, talking to customers, and really thinking through the sales flow. And so anyways, like those are three other areas that like there's a full-time role in each of those things, right? And so, I tend to like kind of jump into new problems and say, look, we got to deal with churn. We got to deal with like how quickly or what product related initiatives we do. That does tie back into growth, but like 6 months from now, I may have my whole schedule full and I don't know how to fix it, or I can't fix it the same way I just fixed it with hiring a VP of marketing.
Yeah. On that note, I mean, it's very well known that multitasking is no good. But you have to do some sort of multitasking. But what really works well, I guess, for me, it's to try to like really set time aside or days aside when you only focus on one or two things, right? Instead of just doing 20 minutes here of this, 20 minutes of that, 20 minutes of the other, try to pack everything in every single day, trying to saying like, okay, like there's a, kind of a sprint this week on like the last week of every month. I'm just going to write it for my blog and I'm going to do that all day. Right, so you can actually focus on one thing. Do you get that luxury being involved in 8 companies? Because I even had a hard time getting that luxury working in one company, and I don't even run it.
Yeah,
I'm just the CMO, right? So that's one thing.
Yeah, I think because I've worked on so many things over the years, I do because I've made time for it, right? Like so, like Fridays, like mornings now, are my blog time. It's like I don't care what's happening. Don't bother me.
Right.
If the company's on fire, text me and I'll stop doing what I'm doing. But like, I should set up things where I don't have to, the company's on fire. Like, first of all, I'm not a developer, so I can't do anything if the company's actually on fire, right?
Yep.
So anything marketing related can wait an hour or two, right? So I've kind of carved out some time and whatnot. The other thing of kind of how I'm scratching my own problem or like itch of the problem of like finding time to do things hands-on work is that I try not to do too many things. Like, I am involved in a lot of pieces. I may be making the decision. I may be driving. I may be the brains behind it, but I'm not the hands. So I only do maybe one hands-on thing a day, right? I've already done mine for the day, right? So I'm done. I have nothing else to do except solve all the other freaking problems that come up, right? Like, so I guess like not solve problems, more so like there's other projects moving forward, so I may need to they may need to check in with me, they may need feedback, so it's like I'm using my brain, not necessarily like I have to do this one thing.
And have you
or
been
5 things.
getting also a bit better at delegating, right? Because you were just saying like that you hire a VP of marketing. For a marketer, it's always hard to delegate marketing, right? And then when you were saying like it actually, like, you got confused with the word. You were saying like, I'm still direct giving feedback, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
how hard is
Yeah.
to break that habit? Because it's not that easy to just like, especially with a company like Mailshake that you've had for so long, right? How is that working out for you so far?
Yeah, so far so good. I think I think it's always hard for me to not necessarily move over, but it's hard for me to turn off my ideas or like
Yeah,
my input, right? So I think the actual reality is like I'm not going to be driving the direction, but it should be something I have input on to make sure that that is the right direction for the company. Um, so I think the that part's hard because that's my core competency, right? So it'd be hard for me to let somebody do some marketing stuff that I don't believe in, right? And so I think I would say over the years I've gotten fairly good at delegating. In fact, none of these 8 companies run because of me. I'm a part of
exactly.
part of it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think this is I'm inherently lazy, but I also love challenges. And so that's my personality in a nutshell. So like I hate doing the same thing 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It is boring. I
Yeah.
like solving a problem. Like how do I grow this? Like, how do I leverage product to grow the business? Like just maybe that's the problem I
The
might be
most
trying to
strategic
solve.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. But then like I try to do it. I learn it. I figure it out. Maybe it takes me 6 months, a year, 5 years, whatever, but I don't want to do it again. I want to go hire the team or people to go do it again, right?
Yeah.
And like, hey, here's the strategy I use. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And so I think because of my laziness, and like, I mean, it's not just laziness, it's boredom and whatever. I just don't like doing things multiple
It's
times.
completely fine to be lazy, man. I am
Yeah,
embracing my laziness as well. I think it's part of the whole thing.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's helped me delegate and be like, I don't want to do any of this stuff. Like I enjoyed doing it the first time. Like
Yeah.
I enjoyed when I started doing customer success and talking to customers at Mailshake and I didn't do this at other companies, but like I talked to about 200 customers and I'm like, guys, I'm done. I don't want to do this. Let's go hire this person. Like we know exactly what needs to be done. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll talk to customers spontaneously or sporadically, but like that's not, I can't be my job,
Yeah. Of
and
course.
I've learned that I don't want a specific job. I hate all jobs.
That's a good one. I'm gonna use that as a quote when I promote the episode. Sujan Patel.
Sounds good.
I hate all jobs. I think that's gonna sell. On the other one, it's meetings are like purging the meetings is one thing, right? But then having the right meetings and structuring them well and making them efficient, is that something that you feel like you're getting better at over the years? Because believe me, I try to always be like a nice guy, and in being a nice guy there's also like a lot of like we just spend half an hour chit chatting about what you watched this weekend, right? And I'm never the guy to come in a meeting and just go like, okay guys, so first this I try to always keep it human, but also that can be sometimes, if you let it go for too long, very inefficient. Do you find a good
Yeah.
balance here, or is something you struggle with?
Yeah, I think I have the opposite problem.
You go straight to the
I
point.
think I we all, so here's our company scenario. All of our 8 companies are all over the world, different culture, different like native languages. So a lot of our team, dev team, for Mailshake is all US, but different culture. Um, like and like I'm talking San Francisco to like Iowa,
Yeah.
loves getting away, never going to disconnect, right? Unless they go to Yosemite for a day and they accidentally lose service or something. Anyways, my point is that we've got folks in Europe and like Belgium and Germany and French folks that are just super blunt, and they're like
Yep.
direct feedback. We've got folks that are in Pakistan and Turkey and whatever that are like, they're good. They can speak. They're competent at speaking English, but if I tell them a joke, they're not going to get it. So
Yeah.
I've been personally, because of all this stuff, and also because I'm doing so many things, I come into a meeting. Let's get to business. Hi, hello. Insert 1 minute or two of like like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
random conversations, and I jump to the point, and I'm like, "Are we done? Cool, let's go." Right? And I also suck at giving people a pat on the back when they do a good job. solving those things or whatever. And so I'm kind of like a train. I just come in and go, let's get the heck out of here and go on to the next thing. And I forget about the thing I had before. There's notes and whatever, and there's action items. So we're good at that. But, I think I would say my problem is I'm working with other humans, right? And so I'm not very human in my day. And I try to take a break and, then I come back later and say it. But yeah, I don't have that figured out yet. I don't know.
Okay. That's okay. Yeah. For me, it's a bit difficult the other way around, right? I sometimes can just go about, hey, everybody, how are you doing? Ask everybody. And then you realize, shit, just like 20 minutes just went by. But and so I'm struggling with fitting that in as well. So to wrap up this pain, today in your everyday, like how much of your time goes to actual hands-on meaningful work, you think? Like percentage or amount, whatever you want to go with, top of your head, an idea.
I just spend one thing a day, right? Sometimes it varies from half my day to 1 hour, so something like that, right?
But you aim to like start it and finish it in one day, essentially, if possible.
Usually try to take on, like, my one thing per day is a bite-sized chunk. It might be of a larger project.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say one thing one day, right? Like that's it. That's all I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any like rules that everybody knows about? Hey, you don't do meetings in the morning, in the afternoon, any sort of like these things, or you go more free about it?
I'm a little bit more free flow. We have a lot of more structured meetings. So I try to have a couple structured meetings, like a check-in with each team every day, or like each week. And then maybe a marketing team meeting. There's a couple other like check-ins that are once a month. And then, I would say like, half my days. So I try to get those all done before noon. And then the afternoon, I could take a nap if I wanted to and do nothing the whole day. I mean, obviously people will rely on me to do that. I'm not doing that. My point is that was my attempt to give myself brain power, which is...
If you're doing that, though, it's totally okay. Nobody's going to listen to this from it's okay. It stays between us.
My team. Yeah, guys, I take no naps. I'm working. I'm at Saturdays.
Well, dude, it's a pandemic. We need to take a break once in a while, right? Deal with it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah,
on the other one, to make a segue to the next pain, right? Because it's one thing to find the time, but then it's really important to really, you were saying you do like one thing a day or so, to really find what that thing is, right? Like, what's the most impactful? So really focusing on your individual contribution over the basic admin that you have to do by running the business. Most of us are by default incompetent at most things, right? And then the key question becomes really like, what can you do like uncommonly well, right? Like better than most people, and how you can contribute to that, to the business, right? It might be hiring. It might be anything that's not like even like directly to marketing. Being involved in so many businesses, I can imagine this might even vary per business, right? Where you can contribute on every business. Do you have this figured out? It's like you wake up every morning and this is the thing you need to improve. This is the few metrics I can impact directly as Sujan, or is this something that's still a blur in your head sometimes?
Usually when I wake up, I know what I want to do. By the time I start doing it, there's a lot of other things that cause the blur. And it's like, I look at this, I'm part of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, kind of a global group of entrepreneurs. Kind of, you have to be a certain size business and whatnot. And what I've learned through this group, and I have a forum anyways, through this process of being and learning to be a better entrepreneur and individual contributor, I would say I've got it figured out conceptually, and I would say 70% of the time I'm good at following what I intend to do, right? The 30% either I don't get around to because I've got other stuff, right? Like on one hand, I do one thing. On the other hand, my job is to make sure the 40-something people that work with me are not waiting for me. I'm not the bottleneck, right? So sometimes it's product, and it's developing new features. Sometimes it's bug stuff, and sometimes it's marketing. Sometimes it's customer support, success. So like a plethora of things in my wheelhouse. But that stuff some days there's just too many things that I need to go look at and give feedback on or be involved in, and some small part of that flow that just allows me to do nothing. So I guess
Right.
going back to your question, I have a very uh, by failing at doing this, I've learned to be very sharp about this, because I know, again, this has been a weakness of mine that I feel like I've solved. But I look at kind of energy, time, right? So to me, I don't really think about the time in my day. I look at the energy in my day, right? And
Right.
so that big thing or whatever I need to actually do as an individual contributor, or like decisions I need to make, right? Like every Wednesday, we've got a weekly Mailshake leadership meeting. That is the most important meeting of our week, because if I don't freaking pay attention, we could like accidentally let something stupid go forward, or like
Yeah.
agree to doing the wrong thing. And so although that's 1 hour of my time, it sets the tone of what 20 people do in their week or the month or the year, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that, and where I was going also with that question is that, to really achieve output, right? You need to be able to break down like output metrics into more like input metrics, right? Like in SaaS, for example, we all know we're working for MRR growth, right? Like that's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to grow our MRR, but then that's something that if you tell to every individual contributor in the company, it's not actionable, right? They don't know what they can change today to change the MRR, because there's so many things in between. So you actually need to tell these people, hey, these are the 2 or 3 metrics that you can personally influence that would eventually drive our MRR if all the cogs in the machine are doing their part. Do you know
Yeah.
exactly what your part is, or is that part kind of diluted across the business, right? Do you have like 2 or 3 things that you say, if these numbers are going in the right direction, then I'm doing my part, besides the
Yeah.
overall MRR growth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely have that. We use, so I want to go back to something real quick
Yeah.
about the prioritization. So this quadrant, right? Urgent, immediate, urgent, but not. So urgent and important, urgent, not important, not urgent, whatever the last one is, right? I
Yeah.
always try to focus on important, impactful, but not urgent.
That's cool.
That's
Yeah,
why I
I get
say
it.
that 70% of the time I'm good at it. Sometimes I get sucked in 30% of the time into urgent, not important, not important, you know,
Yeah.
or urgent and important. And those two quadrants, like urgent and not important, could be like, hey, can you give me feedback on this like blog post title? Like, I don't give a crap, dude. Like, fucking
Yeah.
figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
that's something anybody can solve, right? Urgent, important is like, crap, our SSL, like this simple thing, our SSL is expired. We need to go. Who has the freaking login for this? I don't know. We didn't do a good job organizing. That's a minutia detail, but I could spend 2 hours trying to figure out how to log into something and giving it to our team and whatever, right? So now going back to your question you just asked me, I
Hmm.
use a format called EOS from the book Traction, and
Yep.
it's an entrepreneurial operating system. I don't think this is the best system. I think it's a good system. I think a system is better than no system. You could use OKRs. You could use Scaling Up by Verne Harsh. There's
Yep.
many ways to run a business, but and I say business because this goes back to departments, channels, marketing, everything. So you've got your 5 or 10 year target. You've got your goals for the year. Usually like one target, like one thing your company's trying to do. 5 goals, maybe max in a year, maybe three to five, somewhere there. And then there's the rocks that you measure every quarter.
Yep.
And those things stack up. So like when I look at the quarter, I'm like, my team or whoever I'm working at, each person or team has things they can contribute to achieve that rock. So our goal at Mailshake, our rock is to hit X, I won't say the number, X
Yeah.
number of ICPs. And that was actually our goal for the year. And so that we broke that broke that goal up into 4 quarters. So every quarter for us to succeed, and the goal, again, the target here at Mailshake is to build $100 million organization in exit value. So that's the goal, 5 year goal. The goal for this year is to get to X number of ICP leads per month. At the first quarter of the year, it was, 20% of what the annual goal is.
Yeah.
Second quarter was 40%. Third quarter is 80%. And knowing Q4 sucks in terms of, leads go down, then get to that 100%. So Q3 we're in right now is the hardest kind of quarter. And so we have to really grow. So we have got that's the only thing that matters for us to hit our annual goal. And that annual goal, if not hit, changes our timeline or potential for that 5-year goal. And so I would say at a management level, we've got it locked down. I think on an individual, does one of my marketing people know exactly what they're working on and how it contributes? Not always. And that, to be fair, sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. But as a whole, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to actually be my question. If it's something that you felt like you could pick anybody from the organization and be like, hey, do you know exactly which kind of things you're contributing? And also, what's tricky about setting this up is that, at the end of the day, revenue, it's the target, right? For most organizations. And you try to break this down in a funnel. You were just mentioning sort of having a certain number of leads in your ICP or so on. And that often can create the wrong incentives as well, because people can start getting, finding hacks around it. So you can get a lot of leads that kind of meet the ICP but don't really convert and start lowering quality just to meet their targets. Do you think you've been successful at setting that up in such a way that the incentives are aligned and that you're not, getting the wrong kind of laziness or behavior that comes with the wrong goals?
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes from, I would say, yes, we're absolutely in line in the team. And it took about 9 months or a year to get the whole company to really say, you ask anybody in the company, what are we going after this quarter or year? And what are you personally doing to contribute to that? And then how do you know if you're doing a good or bad job? And so I think that everybody kind of bought into, and then everyone's going the same direction, which is half the battle. The other half is, like you said, quality creep, or trying to take a shortcut or accidentally taking a shortcut where you get more leads but the quality sucks. Well, I think that kind of is solved by, our metrics and scorecard of okay, we want X leads. What's the conversion rate? How much revenue is that tying back to? What's our close rate? And so keeping a pulse on those. And so I think those are kind of optimization levers and require coaching. And so on the manager level of our team or teams, and sometimes that's me being the manager, or sometimes that's my business partner being my quote unquote manager or coach, is to say, okay, you got all this traffic. Great. That was one of your goals. How many leads did you get out of it? And sometimes, it's easy to fail at that, but I think it's that check-in mechanism.
Yeah.
And just being real. And again, on the sales front, it's very straightforward. You get leads, you don't close them, you don't get commission. So they're going to close them, right? Now the downside to that is you close and you shove people, maybe the wrong customer to the funnel, and you get the commission. How do you know that? So that problem is solved on the onboarding and customer success side. It's or systemizing the incentives of say, okay, look, if somebody cancels or gets a refund or whatever, you're going to lose that commission, and you're not, maybe a delay on the commission. Or another thing is you're allowed X percentage of refunds because that's just the normal. Anything above that, you're really, auditing. Now that's the way to solve it after it's happened. The way we solve it before to prevent things like that from happening is that coaching. Yeah. A manager jumping on the calls with folks and
But that's interesting because but this is 8 businesses we're talking about, right? So have you also been able, because coming back to your individual contribution, have you also been able to identify, they might be in different stages, right? Mailshake might be more mature than others or so on. Do you know exactly, or have a really good idea of where you can make the most impactful contribution on each one? Because I can imagine it's completely different depending on the stage they're in.
Yeah, so I think you're right. And out of the 8, there are, so I'll just kind of break it down real quick. Of the 8, one of it is an agency. So I've kind of got myself completely out of the day-to-day of that. We have a general manager, so I don't do anything for that business except check in once a month. And I create content and kind of share what I learn. A lot of the strategies that we're using are still my contribution. That's where I can, So that leaves 7. Of the 7, that we've identified 3 of them to say, we're just going to put these on autopilot. And so autopilot being like, find the team to run it without mine and my partner's intervention at all. If we check in even once a month, we have failed. Then there's 4 left. We've said, okay, one of them is going to be sold, so we have 3 left. So, but anyways, of the 4, different stages, different sizes, and I'd say absolutely whatever you're asking is true, because we use the same system across the board. So the great thing about running multiple companies, there's many bad things and there's many headaches to this. But the best thing about all this is like, when you learn once, you apply many, right? Yeah. So we've come up with a process that works. And fail safes and like coaching programs and whatever, and mentorship to keep leveling up our team, coaching to help making sure that they're like staying true to kind of what they're, and maybe some optimization. The check-ins, scorecards, rocks, goals, targets, whatever. But we apply that every single company. So, one of our companies, Right Inbox, I don't have a sales team, so there's nothing to do there, right? So okay, just cross that off the list.
But what about, because like as you talk, like, and I also consider that you're a new dad and everything, like energy, it's a topic, right? Like, let's say you manage to find the time, and then you also manage to do the best with that time with your individual contribution, which is really difficult, but we all strive for that. Energy plays a big role on this one, right? Like, are you able to find the energy to get all of this done, or is this sometimes an issue in the current times?
I think energy drain and like lack of energy to do all this stuff is absolutely a big problem. That's kind of my personal pain point there, and it definitely makes the businesses kind of not struggle. I wouldn't say struggle, but like it definitely doesn't make the businesses work better. But here's what I've learned over the years. Is that most businesses suck at a lot of things. You only really need to do a couple things right to make the businesses grow, right? Like we did so many stupid things, and like if you look at like all the top companies in the world, like they are like let's just take a look at the Fortune 100, right? Like think of like GE. Mm-hmm. They are failing to innovate to the next era of business, right? They just completely missed the ball, all of it. Microsoft missed the internet, right? But they didn't die. They still are a $1 trillion company, right? So my point is, like, I think it's okay to like fail at a lot of things, or like not be the best. I think I like to personally strive to be efficient structure, operational efficiency, and business management is a aspiration of mine. To me, realistically, I'm like, fuck it, dude. I'm not going to be perfect at this stuff. Even one company, fuck it. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't necessarily, like my goal at Mailshake is to be customer centric, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm hitting that every single time. That's my aim, right? So, if someone's, we've had customers who have have yelled at us or like cursed. And our support team are like, hey, we have to fire that customer. That's just that just doesn't work for us, right?
Yeah.
Would you say we're customer centric there? Would say, hell no. Like that's the exact opposite, right? But doesn't mean I can't aspire to be customer centric. I can't aim to be that way. So, but does my energy? Do I have the energy to do this? I think I go in waves.
Well,
right?
But this is also important because it's to recognize that, right? Because what happens a lot is that when business is not going good, or you need to hit a very ambitious target, right? And like what you'll do probably is that you're really super freaking tired, and you'll still be like, I'm gonna put a few hours before I go to bed, right? I'm just gonna go to do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's much wiser to just go rest and come up at 6 a.m. and get that done with a clean mind and rest it, right? Than just going in. Are you good at like calling yourself on that and just being like, dude, you're not going to be productive right now. You're going to sit on your ass doing nothing. Let's just go to sleep. Or are you that guy that still, like fighting with yourself for 3 more hours, even though you're knowing you're not doing anything or getting anything done?
I'm usually the one who's like, I'm out. I can't do it. And I kind
Yeah.
of feel the guilt and the,
That was my next thing, the guilt.
yeah,
Yeah.
the guilt. I think like just in general, the guilt from the lack of energy is more draining than the energy. Like, so like that's the part that eats me inside when I say like energy, lack of energy or energy drain. I mean actually dealing with a guilt because I feel bad that I'm not doing these things. Like, so like, you know how hard it is to identify a growth channel, right?
Yeah.
But then once you identify it, my intuition is to like go 100% at it or 150%. Like, how do we do this and do more, right? How do we do better? But if you know about it and you too tired or don't have the energy to take action on it today, reality is, okay, can it wait till tomorrow? Can it wait till next week, right? Doesn't matter really. But to me, I feel guilty if I don't do it today when I identify it, right? So that's maybe my personality. Like I tend to be like, let's don't half-ass something, go all in. Like if you're gonna go do it, just do it.
Yeah.
There's no like try, just go do it and fail. That's fine, but just do it, right? Like, so it's probably my personality and kind of, in some ways it makes me a good entrepreneur, a good marketer, and so, as a person, as a human being with emotions outside of my function or skill set, it fucking hurts, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's like
it's hard.
also one of the things you mentioned in our emails is that you're real striving for like, you know, healthy growth, right? Like for many years in the last decade, it's been all about like sort of this mentality of like growth at any cost, like profitability is the evil. We all go for the next funding round sort of thing. And you're really trying to reach what you define as healthy growth. So I'm really curious to see what that definition entails. What is your conception of healthy growth?
Yeah, so I put a lot of thought into what this is because
It's not that simple, huh?
there's
It seems really
no, it's
simple. It's not that simple.
healthy growth is like two words that like take a lot of like defining what your principles are to get there.
Yeah.
But to me it's a growing company. So in the SaaS world, right? My goal is to exit some point down the line. Doesn't
Yep.
matter when. If that is my goal, then healthy growth means fast enough growth happening. That means healthy because otherwise the valuation is a lot lower when you're like a lot slower. So
Yep.
faster, bigger, the multiples change, right? So that's huge in growth rate. So I think it's the growth rate, profitability, efficiency in each team, and business process slash do we have the right, like, maybe this is like not like hiring the right people, but do we have the right management team to execute the vision that we are trying to do? Not for like forever, but like the next 2 years.
But
And
that's
I
a bit
think,
tricky because let me sorry to interrupt you a little bit, but like when you say healthy profit and so on, right? Like what's there needs to be a trade-off, right? Because we all would love that, you know, you can hit it all, right? Like grow really fast and at the same time being sort of profitable, having a good CAC or so on. Very often what needs to happen to reach that speed is that your CAC is off the freaking roof. Essentially you're like losing money every time you make a customer, right?
yeah,
You need to get in that model. Where do you draw a line, right? When it's like, okay, this might make me faster, but I don't cross that line. Uh,
profitable, right? So like,
you aim to remain profitable
yeah,
as you
so
go through it.
profitable, right? We don't have any. None of our companies have funding, so we literally don't have any more money that's in our bank account, right? So like, I
Yeah,
can't spend what I don't have, right? So I
exactly.
can't actually lose money for too long, right? Now we built up a savings and funds to be able to invest. Let's say I'm going to go test out podcast advertising. I need $100,000. I could do that, and we'll go get that $100,000. At the end of it, it has to be whatever.
Yeah,
But what I mean by healthy is like, okay, $100,000 budget, okay, approved. But when you know at $20,000, stop it, that it's not going to work, right? Like, so you've got the 100,000, but like, let's say only spend 10,000 or 20,000 to get some viable answer, general direction. And if it's like back at the drawing board, optimized, that's fine. But at some point, then scale, right? And I think a lot of startups say, "Oh, I want to grow. I'm going to go do this, that, the other," and they go all out. They go $100,000 first, and because they can afford it, because you can go, speed is of the essence. And so I don't look at speed, I look at growth rate, right?
Right.
Different things. Speed is trying to do a lot of things, and input metric. Growth rate is an output of doing the right things, and uh, enough of them, like pushing the envelope. But that where it kind of goes back to reality is the profit, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, if we are losing money every year, we have a finite pool of capital. So like it takes away from our piggy bank. Maybe
Yeah.
we could do that 1 or 2 years, but like uh, after that we would literally out of money.
Y-
And again, that might be okay because you can actually raise debt now. So you can use debt based off your company value, and use that pool of money with a small interest rate and use that to grow. But that again, that for us, it breaks the rule of profitability.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to your newsletter, and something that I read recently, I think it was your last email from it, was about your big, hairy, audacious goal, right? Which is essentially to have an exit from Ramp Ventures of 100 million by 2025, which is in 5 years. So, damn, you have to. I can imagine it's a lot of work. Um, What's your take on it? I absolutely understand the concept of a big, a hairy, audacious goal, right? I understand that it's
Yeah,
like a little bit out there and it has to be intense. That's why the name, right? So you have to be
yeah,
ambitious. I've also had Rand Fishkin on the podcast before. He was telling me how much he really, really regrets not taking an exit opportunity he had for about 30 million, and then just basically never getting the chance to exit again, right?
yeah.
If I set you up in 2022 and there's a door there open for you to exit with 10 million in your pocket, do you have you put yourself in this position? I can imagine you have. And what's your take on it? Are you all in or nothing, or are you just like, yeah, sure, I'll take it? Because at some
Yeah,
point,
so that's a great question. That's a reason, and there's a that's the reason we haven't raised any funds outside capital, is that we want to be controlling our own destiny and have the option to exit whenever we want to be able to pull that parachute whenever the heck we want to do it. Like
yeah,
if I just lose energy tomorrow, I reserve the right to liquidate my assets. Now, like maybe the liquidating my assets might be selling my share, and my partner is like, hey, I want to keep going. Okay, like that's my problem now to sell the company to whoever, or how to an approved person, or maybe to my partners or whatnot. Now, yes, I've thought about these scenarios. We look at, should we just sell this thing, and we ask ourselves that question probably once or twice a year.
yeah,
um, there's a lot of things, market conditions, right? So COVID's happening, is it a good time to sell? Given that we're 6 months into COVID, yeah, absolutely. It's actually, the fear is gone, and now like people are looking for healthy companies to buy, and guess what? All of our companies are profitable and growing fast, right? So like,
yeah,
the other thing is our companies, and we operate this way, is they are built to be sold, meaning um, the operational efficiency, the like management team being able to do this. That I'm not saying we have to sell today or we will sell. And when I ask myself that question every 6 months to a year, it's not a serious question like I'm going to go do this today. I'm going to have a buyer. But if I got an offer, we are prepared to be able to close a deal in 60 to 90 days because we've got our books in order, we've got our
right.
data room, we've
But
got
that's
the
the
management team.
logistics, right? Like, but in your mind, right? Do you think you would
Right.
go
So
and take it, or do you like, I can make more, sort of thing?
again, like I think so. The logistics help me not have to worry about that decision, that
Right.
part of the decision, because I have 8 companies. I have very little emotional attachment to any of them. I have emotional attachment to my team and investors and customers, right? And so, if let's say it checks the box that like they're gonna like this company, like I have an exit opportunity, it's going to be good for the team. It's going to be good for we have investor, meaning like outside capital for some of the companies we've bought,
Yeah.
not like investor. They put in money and they like, not a VC or anything like that. And I am the investor a lot of times in my own businesses. So, is it good for me and financially? And then 3, is it good for the customer? Like if we're going to sell a company, is this person who's going to buy it, like, or whoever I could sell it to, could they actually do good with it, like better than we can do? Maybe they have more resources, maybe they've been in the market, maybe they're a competitor, whatever, right? So if those three things are checked, then it's the amount of money that it is and versus what it could be in the future. And that's a question I think I'll have to think about, right? It's
Yeah.
I don't know. Then as I'm saying, it's like it's three check boxes. Enough money for that day, week, month. Um, does it check my three factors for the company? And like I already know my company's prepared to sell, so it's just a process to go through. So it like 2/3 of my decision is not emotional; it's fact based, and then 1/3 is the money factor enough? And I'd say I'm going with Rand's approach here is like, yeah, I have $100 million exit value, but if somebody comes to me tomorrow and says I'll give you 30 million, I'll consider it.
Yeah. It's not a bad life.
It's not a bad life. What would I do next? And then, this is kind of the same thing. I don't know. I think I have family goals as well, like personal and family goals, right? So does that money, is 30 million enough, or 10 million or whatever, is that enough to do what I want to do personally, right?
Yeah.
And my personal stuff are like, I want to build generational wealth. So if it's $10 million, I'd say probably not. It's not worth it. That's not enough money to go pass down to the next two generations.
Yeah.
It's enough. It is, but it's not. It's not that much money, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of goes back to that. But yeah, I think I'd say I'd sell, like, just to be completely honest, $100 million is my goal. It's a big one and small one. Like a few friends of mine's like, why not aim for $1 billion? I'm like, dude, none of our companies are worth a freaking $1 billion. I
Yeah.
don't even know how to add this up
The whole
to
thing
a billion. It just
is
doesn't make sense.
yeah, no, I know. It's super interesting for the European listeners, I think, because there's such a different conception of those amounts in like Europe versus the US, right? The US has a completely different system than in Europe in many aspects. So sometimes the numbers of like the billions or the hundreds of millions, like even a couple of million here is like, okay, that sounds like more than in the US, right? That there's a lot of education cost and a lot of things that are different. But to wrap this up, man, because it's gone really quickly, we're gonna be almost an hour now. I wanted to get your latest resources for the audience. If you have some cool stuff to share, I have asked every guest before to recommend different things from books, podcasts. So I'm curious to see what you're enjoying lately that you can share with the audience.
Yeah, a couple things. A couple books here I recommend. One is called Finish Big, by a gentleman Bo something, if I forgot his last name.
All right.
Great book on exits. Like, what is like, it helps you, reading through the book will help you kind of understand where you want to go with your company and whatnot. Number two is Traction. I talk about EOS a lot in this conversation. Really good book. Another one is called Scaling Up. Those are the kind of two different versions of like an operating system. I think it used to be called Rockefeller Habits or something like that, or Rockefeller related. But anyways, those are great. I think my favorite like daily thing or weekly thing would be listening to the Acquired podcast. Really, really cool podcast. On companies growing, and not only about acquisitions, but IPOs, like transactions, like a startup idea like Airbnb and the journey to go to IPO or the journey to get sold. And they have all these different ones from like the last decade or two, from like Disney to ESPN. ESPN journey is really cool. They got bought out by the smaller company bought a bigger company with debt. Anyways, really cool stuff. Like, you just learn about all the crazy things that other companies have done and like what they've pulled off. It gives me confidence or kind of ideas to kind of think about what I could do to get my goals. But yeah, those are really, really good ones that I recommend. And then lastly, I'd say Principles by Ray Dalio. Really, really good one. A lot of what you heard today is like, I've kind of set some principles or goals, or like what I believe is right and what I believe is not good, or what I think is bad, and I just kind of operate to those. And some of them matter, and some of them I'm like, I'm okay, not doing it.
Yeah, yeah. If I can add to that list, I think one of good one also to add to that, it's Measure What Matters by John Doerr. I think it touches up mostly about OKRs and that kind of stuff, but it's super important to really know how to set those goals. And people assume it's going to be very straightforward. It often is not, right? It's sometimes it's very, very hard, and what works for other businesses doesn't really work for the business. And the other one would be your own newsletter. I think it's very interesting, and I think you're also going to make a switch now, and this is why I added it to True or False, and you're going to be publishing a bit less frequently but a bit more in depth. So I think that's going to also be really interesting for people. I'm looking forward to reading those posts. They seem really interesting. And besides that, that's really happy to have you, man. It's been really great. It went really quickly. At some point, maybe we can keep sharing pains and do another episode later. But it's been super fun to catch up. By the last time I saw you, you were kidless. Now you have 3, and now you have COVID, so and more companies as well. Because back then I think it was way less as well. So it was really nice to catch up. Thank you for taking the time. It was really nice to have you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And anyone want to chat or follow along, obviously my newsletter is great, talking about everything I learned. But ping me on LinkedIn or email me sujitsu@gmail.com.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody. I'll talk to you soon.
Growth Pains.